time, there was a young girl who had a passion for reading. She would spend hours flipping through the pages of her favorite books, losing herself in the world of fantasy and adventure. However, as she grew older, she began to notice a troubling pattern. None of the characters in her beloved stories looked like her, spoke like her, or had a name like hers. This realization left her feeling like an outsider, wondering why she was so different from her heroes. It wasn't until later she realized the reason for her unease. The little girl who loved reading was me, and unfortunately is millions of other little girls around the world unless something is done to address it. Good morning everyone, my name is Shahd Baligh, and I'm here to discuss with you a topic that is very dear to my heart. We live in a world where stories are an integral part of our lives. From the time we were children, stories have been used to entertain, educate, and inspire us. They help us to understand the world around us and to make sense of our experiences. However, there's a danger that comes with the power of storytelling. The danger of a single story. Let me start by asking you a question. Have you ever read a book or watched a movie where you felt like the storyline or characters didn't represent you or your experiences? It's not a great feeling, is it? Unfortunately, this is a common experience for many people who are often underrepresented in media and literature. Diversity in media literature is essential because it allows us to see the world in different lenses and perspectives. When we expose ourselves to diverse stories and characters, we learn to broaden our understanding of the world and appreciate the differences between us. However, but what happens when we only see a single story or perspective? Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a Nigerian author and activist, talks about the danger of a single story in her book, which I highly recommend. Adichie says it best, that when we only see a single story or perspective, we start to believe it represents the entire truth about a group of people or culture. Let me give you an example. When I was growing up, I used to watch a lot of American TV shows and movies. And in these shows, the Muslim characters were often often portrayed as terrorists or oppressed women who needed to be saved by Western heroes. The damsel in distress or the big bad villain. As a Muslim, this made me feel like my experiences and perspectives were not worthy of recognition. It wasn't until later when I started reading books and watching movies created by Muslim writers and filmmakers that I realized there are many different stories and perspectives within my own community. The danger of a single story is not that it creates stereotypes or reinforces harmful biases, but it erases the experiences of those who do not fit into that narrow narrative. Now, you might be wondering why this matters. Well, let me tell you. The stories we tell and the media we consume have a significant impact on our attitudes and beliefs. When we only see a single story or perspective, we begin to develop a limited or skewed understanding of the world, which can lead to a lack of empathy and understanding towards those who are different from us, which can ultimately harm our relationships and our communities. On the other hand, when we're exposed to diverse stories and perspectives, we can learn to appreciate and celebrate the differences between us. We can learn to see the humanity in others and understand that our differences are what make us stronger as a society. And we can learn to see ourselves within our heroes. The one thing the little girl in me wanted so badly. But how do we ensure diverse representation in media and literature? Well, it starts with us as consumers. We need to actively seek out and support diverse voices by reading books and watching movies created by underrepresented writers and filmmakers. We need to challenge the media industry and demand more from media companies and publishers. And we need to recognize that diversity goes beyond just race and ethnicity. We need to ensure stories from people with disabilities, from the military combat veterans community, and from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And now I want to address those who stubbornly cling to the misguided belief that merit and talent should always triumph over diversity in media and literature. Are you truly suggesting that our societal biases, deeply ingrained by years of systematic oppression, should continue to dictate who's deemed talented or worthy of recognition? How can we justify such a blatant discrimination and deny marginalized voices the opportunity to tell their stories and be seen as equals? We must prioritize diversity, not just as a moral imperative, but as a logical one. When we amplify diverse voices, we expand our understanding of the human experience and unlock a world of creativity and possibility. Can you honestly look me in the eyes and tell me that merit and talent should come, but at the cost of equity and justice? The danger of a single story is that it limits our understanding of the world and reinforces harmful biases. When we expose ourselves to diverse perspectives, we learn to broaden our perspectives and see the world in different lenses. Something I've said once and I'll say a million times again. But diversity in media and literature, it's not just about representation. It's about power and control. The media industry is dominated by a small group of people who have the power to decide which stories get told and how they're told. When we only see a single story, it's often because those in power have decided it's the only story worth telling. But why should they get to decide? It is not as if they're more human than us, more advanced than us. Why should we leave our fates in the hands of those who do not humanize us, do not approach us with empathy? I believe it's finally time to impeach those in charge. How can we continue to live in a world where so many stories are left untold, where those who have been historically marginalized are still struggling to be seen and heard? It's time to wake up and recognize that the media we consume has a profound impact on how we see ourselves and each other. We cannot continue to sit idly by and allow the power structures that perpetuate inequality to go unchallenged. We must demand more from the media industry. We must challenge media companies and publishers to prioritize diversity and inclusion in their content. It breaks my heart to see all the stories that are left untold, all the voices that have been silenced. It is time for us to use our voices, to use our wallets, to use our power to amplify these voices and give them power. We cannot continue to allow the power structures that perpetuate inequality to go unchallenged. We have the power, so let's be intentional in our media consumption. We need to start taking action. Talk to others about this issue. Tell them why it is so important. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. Emphasize why this issue matters in today's world. In the words of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the danger of a single story is not that it creates stereotypes or reinforces harmful biases. But when we see a single story, it becomes the only story in our eyes. We must not continue to let this quote be the perspective in our world. In conclusion, we must not the importance of diversity in media and literature, it cannot be overstated. This is an issue that will continue to be addressed in today's world until it is acknowledged and amplified. We must address the marginalized voices and creators who have not had the chance to speak, who have not had the chance to tell their stories. So I leave you with a quote by the great Kimberly Crenshaw. Diversity is not a box to be checked. It is not a quota to be filled or a buzzword. Diversity is the reality we need. To accomplish if we want a more equitable and just society. Thank you.